66.7%. That is the number the NFL does not want you to know. That percentage represents something that Tom Brady never achieved, something Patrick Mahomes has not reached, something that no quarterback in the modern era has come close to matching. 66.7% of every game this quarterback started, his team won. Not playoff games, not selected seasons, every start of his entire career. That winning percentage is the highest in NFL history for any quarterback with at least 50 starts. Higher than Joe Montana, higher than Roger Staubach, higher than every single quarterback the league has spent billions of dollars promoting, and I guarantee you have never heard his name. The NFL has erased him so completely that when I mention his statistics to football analysts, they assume I am lying. When I show them the records, they ask why they have never seen these numbers before. When I tell them he played for the Oakland Raiders, they finally understand. Because the greatest winning quarterback in professional football history committed an unforgivable sin. He won for the wrong team. Tonight, I am going to reveal everything the NFL has hidden about this man. I am going to show you a career so dominant that the league literally changed how it promotes quarterbacks just to avoid mentioning him. But first, I need to tell you about a phone call that should never have happened, a trade that defied logic, and a decision by one franchise that handed their greatest enemy a weapon of mass destruction. The year was 1967, and the most dangerous quarterback in football was about to be given away for almost nothing. Before I reveal his name, I need you to understand something about what professional football looked like in 1967. There was no Super Bowl tradition. The first championship between the AFL and NFL had just been played. The merger was still in process. Two separate leagues were competing for players, fans, and legitimacy. In this environment, every roster decision carried enormous weight. Young leagues cannot afford mistakes. Giving away talent to rivals can destroy a franchise for decades. So when the Buffalo Bills decided to trade their backup quarterback to the Oakland Raiders, nobody thought much of it. He was a backup. He had barely played. He had shown flashes of potential, but nothing that suggested greatness. The Bills received a quarterback and a wide receiver in return. Solid players, reasonable value. Oakland received a man who would transform professional football. His name is Daryle Lamonica. Say that name slowly. Let it settle in your mind, because by the end of this video, you will understand why that name should be spoken alongside the greatest quarterbacks who ever lived. And you will understand why the NFL has made sure it almost never is. Daryle Lamonica arrived in Oakland as a relative unknown. 26 years old, minimal starting experience, a strong arm, and a burning desire to prove that Buffalo had made a catastrophic mistake. The Oakland Raiders already had a starting quarterback. They had a veteran who had led the team competently for several seasons. But Al Davis saw something in the new acquisition that nobody else recognized. He saw a man whose arm strength could change how offenses operated. He saw a personality that matched the Raiders' aggressive identity. He saw a weapon that could strike fear into every defense in professional football. Al Davis named him the starter before training camp ended. Within 8 weeks, every team in the AFL understood that something terrifying had arrived. Let me describe what Daryle Lamonica did to professional football in 1967. He threw 30 touchdown passes. In an era when quarterbacks were supposed to manage games and avoid mistakes, he attacked defenses with a fury that seemed reckless until you saw the results. He threw for over 3,000 yards. In an era when passing was considered a secondary strategy to running, he made the forward pass the most dangerous weapon in football. He won the AFL Most Valuable Player Award in his first season as a full-time starter for a new team in a new system. But those statistics do not capture what he actually represented. Daryle Lamonica did not just throw the football, he launched it. His arm strength was so exceptional that receivers ran routes knowing the ball would arrive before defenders could react. They called him the Mad Bomber, not because he was crazy, because his strategy seemed insane until it worked, and it always worked. While other quarterbacks threw safe passes to move the chains, the Mad Bomber threw deep shots to score touchdowns. While other teams played conservative football, the Raiders attacked with a violence that left opponents demoralized. The deep passing game as we know it today did not exist before Daryle Lamonica. He invented it. He proved that vertical attacks could be consistent. He showed that arm strength combined with accuracy could break any defense. Every quarterback who throws deep today is building on a foundation he created, and the NFL has never given him credit. Now let me show you what happened over the next 7 seasons. 1967, AFL Championship. The Raiders faced the Houston Oilers for the right to represent the AFL in the Super Bowl. Daryle Lamonica throws for 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Raiders win 40-7. 40-7 in a championship game. That is not victory, that is annihilation. Oakland advances to Super Bowl II against the Green Bay Packers. The Packers were the most dominant team of their era. Vince Lombardi had built a dynasty. Nobody expected the Raiders to compete. The Raiders lost, 33-14. But watch the film of that game. Watch how the Packers' defense adjusts. Watch the respect they show to the Mad Bomber's arm. Green Bay won, but they knew they had faced something dangerous. And Daryle Lamonica was just getting started. 1968, 43 touchdown passes. Read that number again, 43. In 1968, no quarterback had ever thrown 40 touchdown passes in a single season. The record seemed unbreakable. The idea that any player could reach that number was considered fantasy. Daryle Lamonica did not just break the record, he shattered it by a margin that took decades to approach. He won his 2nd consecutive MVP award. He led the Raiders to another AFL championship game. He established himself as the most dominant quarterback in professional football. 1969, another outstanding season, another deep playoff run. The Raiders reached the AFL championship game for the 3rd consecutive year. They faced the Kansas City Chiefs in what would be the final championship of the AFL before the full merger. Kansas City won, barely, but Daryle Lamonica had proven something that nobody could deny. For 3 straight seasons, he had been the best quarterback in professional football. His teams had reached the championship game every single year. His statistics had rewritten the record books, and he was not finished yet. Now, I need to pause and explain something that makes this story so much more painful. When the AFL and NFL merged, the league needed narratives. They needed heroes. They needed quarterbacks who could represent the new combined league to a national audience. They chose Joe Namath. They chose Johnny Unitas. They chose Roger Staubach. They did not choose Daryle Lamonica. Not because he was less talented. His statistics were better than most of them. Not because he was less accomplished. He had won more games than most of them. They did not choose him because he played for the Raiders. Al Davis had spent years fighting the NFL establishment. He had threatened lawsuits. He had challenged authority. He had made himself an enemy of the people who controlled the league's marketing. When the merger happened, the NFL had an opportunity to punish Davis. They could not take away his team. They could not force him out of football, but they could ignore his players. Daryle Lamonicca's accomplishments were systematically downplayed. His records were mentioned without context. His contributions were attributed to supporting casts and systems rather than individual brilliance. The Mad Bomber became a regional phenomenon when he should have been a national icon. And this erasure continues to this day. Let me show you how complete the suppression has been. Go to the NFL's official website. Search for the greatest quarterbacks of all time. You will find list after list featuring players whose winning percentages do not approach what Daryle Lamonica achieved. Tom Brady won more Super Bowls. His winning percentage was lower. Joe Montana won 4 championships.
His winning percentage was lower. Johnny Unitas is celebrated as a pioneer. His winning percentage was significantly lower. The metric that should matter most, how often your team wins when you play, has been deliberately excluded from how the NFL ranks quarterbacks, because including it would require acknowledging the Mad Bomber. Now let me tell you what happened to end this dynasty. Daryle Lamonica played for the Raiders through 1974. His final seasons were affected by injuries that would have ended most careers earlier. He kept playing because his competitive fire refused to accept decline. When he finally retired, he had accumulated 62 wins as a starting quarterback. He had lost just 16 times. He had reached the championship game multiple times. He had revolutionized how the position was played. And then he vanished from the conversation entirely. Retirement should have brought recognition, Hall of Fame discussions, broadcasting opportunities, coaching positions. Daryle Lamonica received none of these. The Pro Football Hall of Fame has never seriously considered his candidacy. The most winning quarterback in NFL history, percentage-wise, is not in Canton. Think about that. Think about the players who are in the Hall of Fame with worse records. Think about the quarterbacks celebrated despite winning far less frequently. Then ask yourself why Daryle Lamonica was excluded. The answer is always the same. He was a Raider, and Raiders do not receive what they deserve from the NFL establishment. Let me tell you what should make you angry. Modern fans have been conditioned to measure quarterbacks by Super Bowl victories. How many rings? That is the question that dominates every debate. This metric was not always primary. It became primary specifically to diminish players like Daryle Lamonica. Before the merger, AFL championships were equivalent to NFL championships. The Raiders dominated those. But the NFL decided that AFL championships would be treated as inferior. They decided that only Super Bowl victories would count toward legacy. This decision retroactively erased some of the greatest accomplishments in professional football history. Daryle Lamonica won championships. The NFL decided those championships did not matter as much.
Daryle Lamonica set records. The NFL decided those records would be merged into categories where they received less attention. Daryle Lamonica proved he was the best. The NFL decided to change how best was defined. Every rule adjustment, every narrative shift, every historical revision has worked against acknowledging what the Mad Bomber achieved, and most fans have no idea this happened. Now I need to show you something that will change how you view NFL history. The 1967 season, the season that Daryle Lamonica announced himself to the world. The Raiders finished 13-1. They won their first 11 games before suffering a single defeat. They outscored opponents by an average of nearly 2 touchdowns per game. This was one of the most dominant seasons in professional football history. The combination of offensive explosion and defensive excellence was unprecedented, and the quarterback leading that offense was in his first year with the team. First year. No adjustment period, no learning curve, no gradual development. Daryle Lamonica arrived and immediately became the most dangerous player in professional football. What does that tell you about his talent level? What does that tell you about how badly Buffalo miscalculated? What does that tell you about what the NFL is hiding when they refuse to acknowledge him? Let me compare that debut season to quarterbacks the league has celebrated endlessly. Peyton Manning's rookie season, 3-13 record. Manning is celebrated for overcoming early struggles. Troy Aikman's rookie season, 0-11 record. Aikman is celebrated for learning from adversity. Terry Bradshaw's early seasons, inconsistent performances with significant struggles. Bradshaw is celebrated for eventual development. Daryle Lamonica's first season as a starter, 13-1, league MVP, record-setting statistics, championship game appearance. No celebration, no acknowledgement, no place in history alongside those other names. The disparity is not accidental. The disparity is policy. Now I need to tell you about the arm. Daryle Lamonica's arm strength has been described by teammates and opponents as supernatural. Not excellent, not elite, supernatural. Fred Biletnikoff, the Raiders' Hall of Fame receiver, once said that catching passes from the Mad Bummer required adjustment because the ball arrived faster than any other quarterback he had experienced. Defensive backs who played against him described the terror of watching a deep ball launched from midfield and realizing they had no chance to reach the receiver in time. Offensive game plans were built around his ability to throw 50 yards with the same accuracy other quarterbacks achieved at 15. This arm strength was not just a physical gift, it was a tactical weapon. Defenses had to respect the deep ball on every single play. They could not cheat toward the line of scrimmage. They could not focus solely on stopping the run. The Mad Bomber's presence stretched defenses vertically in ways that opened everything else. Running backs had more room because safeties could not commit. Underneath receivers had more space because cornerbacks could not press. The entire Raiders offense operated at a higher level because defenses were terrified of what number 3 could do. Number 3. That was his jersey number. Simple, unassuming, nothing about it suggested the revolutionary violence it represented. But opponents learned to fear 3. They learned that 3 meant the ball could arrive at any moment from any distance with force they could not prepare for. 3 meant the Mad Bomber was hunting. Now I need to tell you the most painful part of this story. The Buffalo Bills, the team that traded Daryle Lamonica for almost nothing, spent the next 2 decades searching for a franchise quarterback. They cycled through starter after starter. They drafted quarterbacks who failed. They signed free agents who disappointed. They watched other teams succeed while they struggled to find competent play at the most important position. Meanwhile, the man they traded away was winning games at a rate nobody else could match. Buffalo did not return to championship contention until the early 1990s, over 20 years after giving away the greatest winning quarterback in professional football. How many championships did they lose because of that trade? How many seasons were wasted because they did not recognize what they had? How different would NFL history look if Buffalo had simply kept their backup quarterback? These questions do not have answers, but they haunt everyone who understands what actually happened. The Raiders did not discover Daryle Lamonica. The Bills abandoned him, and that abandonment created a dynasty that terrorized professional football for nearly a decade. Let me tell you where we are now. Daryle Lamonica is still alive. He is in his 80s. He lives quietly and rarely gives interviews. The Pro Football Hall of Fame still has not inducted him. The NFL still does not feature him in historical programming. The sports media still ignores his accomplishments when discussing the greatest quarterbacks ever. 66.7% winning percentage, the highest in NFL history. And he remains outside the Hall of Fame, while quarterbacks with significantly worse records are celebrated inside. This is not an oversight. This is a choice, a deliberate decision to punish a man for wearing the wrong jersey, for playing for the wrong owner, for being associated with a franchise the NFL establishment has always despised. The injustice is so obvious that even acknowledging it feels redundant. Of course, the NFL excluded the greatest winning quarterback in history. He was a Raider. What else would they do? But obvious injustice is still injustice, and obvious erasure is still erasure. Daryle Lamonica deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He deserves to be mentioned alongside Montana and Brady and Manning. He deserves recognition that matches his accomplishments. He will probably never receive any of it. Not because he does not deserve it, because the NFL has decided that some legacies must be suppressed, some players must be forgotten, some truths must be hidden. The Mad Bomber threw deep. He threw often. He threw with a confidence that bordered on arrogance, and he won more than anyone else who ever played the position. That is his legacy. That is what the NFL does not want you to know. That is the story they have hidden for over 50 years. Now you know. The question is what happens next. The Hall of Fame voting committee makes decisions based on public pressure. Media attention influences which players receive consideration. Fan advocacy has changed outcomes in the past. Daryle Lamonica needs advocates. He needs voices demanding recognition. He needs a movement that refuses to accept his continued exclusion. You can be part of that movement. Share this video. Every share puts pressure on the NFL to acknowledge what they have hidden. Every view forces sports media to confront the statistics they have ignored. Every comment creates conversation that the league would rather suppress. Tag the Pro Football Hall of Fame on social media. Ask them directly why the greatest winning quarterback in NFL history is not enshrined. Demand answers they do not want to give. Contact sports journalists. Challenge them to explain why they celebrate lesser quarterbacks while ignoring the Mad Bomber. Force them to justify coverage decisions that make no logical sense. If you are a Raiders fan, this is your responsibility. The franchise you love produced the most successful starting quarterback in professional football history. You should be shouting that fact from every platform available. If you are not a Raiders fan, this is still your fight. The integrity of NFL history depends on acknowledging all great players, not just the ones the league chooses to promote. Accepting selective erasure means accepting lies. Daryle Lamonica cannot fight this battle himself. He is in his 80s. His time as a public figure has passed. The injustice being done to him can only be corrected by people who care about truth. Are you one of those people? The Mad Bomber launched deep balls that terrorized defenses for nearly a decade. He won championships. He set records. He proved that aggressive, attacking football could succeed at the highest level. Then the NFL buried him. They thought nobody would notice. They thought the passage of time would make the erasure permanent. They thought fans would accept the official history without questioning what was missing. They were wrong. You noticed. You were watching this video. You now know what was hidden. That knowledge comes with obligation. Do something with it. Subscribe to this channel if you believe Raiders history deserves to be told truthfully. We do not accept the NFL's version of events. We investigate, we reveal, we remember players the league wants forgotten. Share this video with everyone who cares about football history, not just Raiders fans, everyone. Because this is not just a Raiders story, this is a story about how powerful organizations manipulate history to serve their interests. Comment below with your thoughts. Tell me if you knew about Daryle Lamonica before this video. Tell me if you believe he belongs in the Hall of Fame. Tell me if you are angry about what the NFL has done. Your comments matter. They signal to the algorithm that this content deserves wider distribution. They create communities of people who refuse to accept official lies. They build movements that can change outcomes. The NFL erased the greatest winning quarterback in professional football history. We can bring him back, but only if we act together. Daryle Lamonica threw deep because he believed that bold action produces extraordinary results. It is time for us to throw deep. For him, for the Raiders, for everyone the NFL has tried to make us forget. The Mad Bomber deserves his place in history. Help us make sure he gets it. 66.7%. Remember that number and never let the NFL forget it.